Nikki Haley calls for mental competency tests for senators over 75, which is insane. We should have mental competency tests for every member of Congress. Trump and Biden are tied in presidential polls, and probably also in polls for rematches I least want to live through again. And mask mandates might be coming back, angering many and delighting those who can now save money by not getting Invisalign. That and more on this week's headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. A Nevada storm caused flooding at the annual Burning Man Festival, stranding tens of thousands of people in deep mud with no working toilets. Wow, I've heard of people getting wet at Burning Man, but never so literally. A shelter-in-place order was given, but many festival goers ignored it and walked or drove through the thick mud to the nearest highway 5 miles away. However, many more stayed behind and partied on, unfazed, continuing the festival mood. Probably since Burning Man is largely a hippie festival, and hippies aren't afraid of getting dirty. Several celebrities, including Chris Rock, and a number of social media influencers were among those that tried to escape the sludge of Burning Man. Wait, several influencers got doused in historic rainfall? Are we sure this is a storm and not a much-needed biblical cleansing? Was there an old guy in a boat nearby with 2 of every animal by chance? Speaking of old guys, Mitch McConnell. The Senate Minority Leader froze twice mid-speech in recent weeks, appearing disoriented. His doctors say he's suffering occasional lightheadedness, possibly brought on by a concussion he suffered in March or dehydration, but that he's clear to keep working. The doctor also said a brain scan conducted on McConnell showed no signs of stroke or seizures. However, several neurologists told the New York Times that these episodes appear to be mini-strokes, or more likely focal seizures, causing millions of Americans to say, duh. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, a Democrat, was non-committal about replacing McConnell with a Republican senator if he resigns, which he is required to do by state law. Beshear says he's refusing to commit to this because Senator McConnell has said he's going to serve out his term, and I believe him. So I'm not going to speculate about something that hasn't happened and isn't going to happen. I'm assuming he's just paraphrasing what McConnell told him. What Mitch actually said was, I'm going to serve out my term. Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley says that McConnell and other elderly politicians who refuse to give up power are a major issue. And she wants mental competency tests for anyone over the age of 75. It's not the worst idea. I've heard politicians called puppets before, but because they were propped up by money. These days, some senators are so old, they're likely to be called puppets because they're propped up with strings. Just like in Weekend at Bernie Sanders. America is currently governed by some of its oldest politicians ever, which is exactly Haley's point.
Right now, the Senate is the most privileged nursing home in the country. I mean, Mitch McConnell has done some great things, and he deserves credit, but you have to know when to leave.
Well, if the Senate truly is a nursing home, there's one extreme way to get rid of all the elderly senators. Just put Andrew Cuomo in charge of it. He's available, since he still hasn't faced any consequences for his policies decimating other nursing homes. And after the break, 2 rock legends pass away. Welcome back. Singer-songwriter and margarita and cheeseburger lover Jimmy Buffett passed away due to a rare form of skin cancer. And Smash Mouth's all-star former lead singer Steve Harwell passed away due to liver failure. My condolences go out to everyone who's a fan of music to get day drunk to while at a West Palm Beach Buffalo Wild Wings. Speaking of drinking, Texas has a new law that requires drunk drivers to pay child support if they kill a child's parent or guardian while driving under the influence. So drink responsibly, Texans, because now there's another way that getting hammered and smashing a stranger can lead to you paying child support. A Wall Street Journal hypothetical 2024 presidential poll found Joe Biden and Donald Trump tied at 46% apiece. ABC George Stephanopoulos was shocked by this, saying he couldn't believe so many people would still vote for Trump despite his legal baggage. Has he not been paying attention? I feel like I'm stuck on repeat, especially since people thinking Trump will never become president is arguably what motivated him to become president in the first place. Thanks, Obama. And every indictment has caused Trump to jump in the polls. A lot of people think Biden's Department of Justice is being weaponized against a political opponent, so the more legal baggage Trump gets, the stronger he becomes. Trying to take down Trump with indictments is like trying to kill a mosquito by giving it a glass of freshly squeezed hemoglobin. Also, I just realized a great name for this Trump mosquito would be blood orange. But Trump being so close to Biden in the polls may have less to do with how popular Trump is and more to do with how unpopular Biden is. Right now, people are about as excited to vote for Biden as kids are to go to the dentist. And some say it's a race problem.
Young Black and Latino voters, they're not ready to come back to the party. They are worried about their future. And right now, they're looking for a leader who represents their values and their vision. And I think the president's campaign is going to have to really, go deep and go hard to motivate those voters to come back.
For the love of everything holy, please don't encourage Joe Biden to go deep and go hard. But why on earth would she think that young Black voters aren't ready to come back to the Democratic Party? Who represents their values and visions more than Joe Biden?
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't Black.
See, he gets it. Is Biden out of touch? No, it's the children who ain't Black. But Brazil is right. To win the 2024 presidential election, Biden and Trump will both have to campaign harder than they've ever campaigned in their lives. Eventually. Because right now, both presumed candidates have incredibly light campaign schedules. Trump is preoccupied by his legal battles, and Biden is preoccupied by whatever kept him from responding to the Maui fires in a timely manner. But it's only just barely primary season, and they're both dominating their opponents. According to another Wall Street Journal poll, Trump is the top choice for nearly 60% of GOP voters. And 538's presidential primary polling average shows Biden has an enormous lead over his main challenger, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. That lead will likely be untouched since the Democratic Party has all but disowned RFK Jr. And we all remember what happened to Bernie Sanders. The DNC refuses to hold a debate between RFK Jr. and Biden. Now why on earth would the DNC be afraid of Biden speaking publicly?
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't Black.
Truly the voice of Black youth. So for now, it's looking like Biden and Trump will glide into the 2024 presidential election without having to worry about primary challengers. I'd say they should be careful, since this sounds like the mindset of the rabbit and the tortoise and the hare, but they probably don't need to worry about that since the tortoise isn't looking so hot these days. And after the break, the former leader of the Proud Boys receives 22 years in prison. Welcome back. Former Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio was sentenced to 22 years in prison for allegedly masterminding the January 6th riot, which prosecutors called seditious conspiracy. Prosecutors initially asked that Tarrio receive 33 years in prison for allegedly coordinating the January 6th riot. This is despite the fact that he was not at the riot. He was arrested a few days beforehand for burning a Black Lives Matter flag and was ordered to leave Washington. And despite the fact that the FBI found scant evidence the U.S. Capitol attack was coordinated or organized in any way. But Tarrio was convicted largely due to posts he made encouraging his followers on the social media platform Parler. He was also found guilty on a terrorism charge over the destruction of a fence at the Capitol, where, I remind you, he wasn't present. I don't know how terrorized anyone can be over the destruction of a fence. If a terrorist destroyed only a fence in a suicide bombing, I don't think he'd get even one virgin in the afterlife. And if he did, it'd probably look like this. U.S. District Judge Timothy Kelly handed down the sentence, calling what happened on January 6th a disgrace. Many feel this is another example of the justice system being weaponized against Trump and his followers. But Kelly was actually appointed by Trump, so maybe he gave this harsh sentence for the destruction of a fence, because if there's one thing Trump holds sacred, it's walls. New COVID strains are leading to a rise in infections and hospitalizations. As a result, several healthcare facilities around the country and Morris Brown College in Atlanta have reinstituted mask mandates. Between this and Joe Biden and Donald Trump running against each other for president, it looks like 2020 is back, baby! Why am I suddenly filled with rage and despair all of a sudden? Morris Brown College has already ended their mask mandate, which lasted for a scheduled 2 weeks. The mandate incited backlash, but the university is still banning large gatherings on campus. In Los Angeles, an LA County public health official said they weren't willing to say never on bringing back a citywide mask mandate in the future. And though the city didn't order it, Hollywood studio Lionsgate instituted a mask mandate at its offices that lasted several days after employees tested positive for COVID. To be fair, if you're going to force people to wear masks, the best time to do it is a month before Halloween. No, we're not regressing. We're just getting into the spooky spirit. Now put this on or you're fired. Now I want to make this very clear so YouTube doesn't think I'm spreading misinformation or anything. I'm not anti-mask. I'm just reporting on the controversy surrounding mask mandates. I'm actually very pro-mask, specifically Korean face masks. I use them every night in my skincare routine. That's why I look so incredible for a 76-year-old. So for anyone who thinks me making fun of old senators is ageist, it's not. Those geezers are my contemporaries. Former White House COVID-19 response coordinator Dr. Deborah Birx is pushing back on mask mandates returning, saying we need to actually empower people with the information that they need for themselves and their families, because every family is different. And by the way, outside is safe and playgrounds are safe. Yes, playgrounds are safe. Now, they're made from plastic and have foam rubber floors. When I was a kid, playgrounds were tetanus death traps that looked too cruel even for Silent Hill. Man, 1953 was a different time. Speaking of old things you never thought you'd see again, Dr. Fauci. Fauci said he's concerned people won't abide by future mask recommendations, which he's right to worry about after everything everyone's gone through. I'm not sure if the dude would abide. Also, didn't Fauci retire? Why is he still around? Is he still telling people what to do because the economy is so bad he needs the work? Or is he just being a professional bummer for the love of the game? While Fauci stepped down as director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, he didn't retire. According to him, he's pursuing the next chapter of his career at 81 years old. And here I was afraid the politicians were the only geriatrics that refused to give up power. Fauci says, I would hope that if we get to the point that the volume of cases is such, and organizations like the CDC recommends, CDC does not mandate anything, recommends that people wear masks, I would hope that people abide by that recommendation and take into account the risks to themselves and their families. Yeah, the CDC doesn't give mask mandates, they just gave mask orders during the pandemic. That's completely different. Kind of like how coriander in the UK is not at all similar to cilantro in the US. See, not at all similar in the slightest. However, the most comprehensive study on the effectiveness of masks was conducted last month by researchers from prestigious universities around the world. It finds wearing masks in community probably makes little or no difference to the outcome of influenza-like illness / COVID-19-like illness compared to not wearing masks. Though the researchers note the high risk of bias in the trials, variation in outcome measurement, and relatively low adherence with the interventions during the studies hampers drawing firm conclusions. This study was published last month, yet Fauci is still recommending wearing masks should COVID cases continue to rise. He was asked about this by CNN. Fauci claims that while there isn't a lot of evidence to prove masks help the public at large during the pandemic, there are lots of studies that show masks help on an individual level. Phew! Thank goodness it helps on the individual level. Now, if only the public were made up of several individuals. So is he saying if you're isolated and wearing a mask, then they work? It's hard to argue with that, science. It's kind of like how you can't get pregnant if you take contraceptives and remain abstinent. Clearly, it's the contraceptives protecting you. Fauci is receiving tons of backlash from politicians and many others who oppose any future mask mandates, calling him a fraud and a liar. Man, Fauci's covered in so much mud being slung at him, you'd think he was at Burning Man. But with everything going back to 2020, you might want to start saving up. Fortunately, if you want some good money tips, look no further than Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Check out this video from my channel Gamers Unbeaten about how Tears of the Kingdom really teaches you how to make it through a recession. And if you want to make sure we can keep making episodes like this, click that orange button to support us on Patreon. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.